Montana, January 1945. The snow falls in silence. A German Hauptmann stands at the edge of a frozen tree line near the Colmar pocket. His name is Heinrich Vogel. He is 42 years old. He has a wife in Dresden and two daughters he has not seen in 18 months. He is writing them a letter. His hands are steady despite the cold. They have to be. He has survived 3 years on the Eastern Front. He watched his battalion die in the snow outside Stalingrad. He crawled through the ruins of Kursk. He held his best friend as he bled out in a Ukrainian wheat field. But he is alive. He has learned the rules of survival. Keep your head down. Trust no one. Never stand in the open, except here, 600 yards behind his own lines. He believes he is safe. The pencil scratches against paper. His breath creates small clouds in the frozen air. He writes about the cold. He writes about the food, which is terrible. He writes about wanting to come home. He writes that he loves them. He pauses, looks up at the gray sky, wonders if they are looking at the same sky in Dresden. The bullet arrives before the sound. It travels at 2,600 feet per second. It covers the distance in less than a heartbeat. Heinrich Vogel never hears it coming. The impact snaps his head back. The letter falls from his hands. The pencil drops into the snow. His body crumples like a puppet with cut strings. For 3 seconds, there is only the sound of wind through frozen branches. Then the crack of the rifle reaches his position. A single sharp report that echoes off the trees and dies. But Heinrich Vogel does not hear it. He is already gone. 800 yards away, hidden in a snowbank, so perfectly camouflaged that even a deer would walk past without noticing, a young man lowers his rifle. His name is James Callahan. He is 19 years old. His hands are shaking. He whispers 2 words into the frozen air. "I'm sorry." Then he closes his eyes and begins the slow, careful process of backing out of his position without leaving a trace. This is not where his story begins, but it is where we must start, because to understand what these men became, you must first see what they did, and then you must ask yourself a question that haunted them for the rest of their lives. When does a hunter become a killer? And when does a killer learn to become a man again? This is not a story about heroes. This is a story about cost. Before they became ghosts, they were boys. Boys from the loneliest corners of America. Boys from places where the nearest neighbor lived 5 miles away, and winter could kill you as surely as any bullet. Boys who learned to shoot not because they wanted to, but because their families would starve if they missed. James Callahan, Montana. Robert Wade, Wyoming. William Fisher, Idaho. Samuel Rivers, Texas. 4 names, 4 hunters. 4 men who would help win a war and lose pieces of their souls doing it. Let me tell you who they were before the war took them. James Callahan was born in Whitefish, Montana in 1925. His father died when he was 11 years old. Mining accident, tunnel collapse. They never recovered the body. Jim became the man of the house overnight. His mother was sick. Tuberculosis, though they did not have money for a doctor to confirm it. His 3 younger siblings looked to him for everything: food, warmth, hope. The Montana winter does not care about your age or your circumstances. It will kill you with the same indifference it shows to everything else. Jim learned to hunt, not for sport, not for pride, for survival. At 12 years old, he was tracking elk through snow 3 feet deep. He learned to read the wind by the way it touched his face. He learned to move so quietly that animals could not hear him coming. He learned patience, the kind of absolute stillness that allows you to wait for hours in freezing temperatures without moving a muscle. He learned that a wounded animal suffers, that a missed shot means wasted ammunition, that you have one chance to do it right. His father's last words to him, spoken from a hospital bed 3 days before he died, became his code. "You shoot clean, boy. 1 shot, 1 kill. Anything else is cruelty." Jim took those words into his bones. By the time he was 16, he could hit a running elk at 700 yards with iron sights. The other hunters in Whitefish called him a natural. But Jim knew the truth. There was nothing natural about it. It was necessity. It was hunger. It was the weight of 3 younger siblings depending on him to bring home meat. When Pearl Harbor was bombed in December 1941, Jim was 16, too young to enlist. But he remembers standing in the general store, listening to the radio, watching the men around him go silent. He knew even then that the war would come for him eventually. What he did not know was what it would ask him to become. Robert Wade was different. Bobby came from money. His family owned a ranch outside Cody, Wyoming, 3,000 acres of grassland and cattle. His father had fought in the First World War and come home with medals and nightmares. Bobby was the oldest of four brothers, strong, confident, natural leader, the kind of man other men followed without question. His father taught him to shoot when he was 8 years old, not for food, for sport, for the pure challenge of it. Bobby could hit prairie dogs at 500 yards before he was 12. He won every shooting competition in the county. He was good and he knew it. But Bobby was not arrogant. He was protective. He watched out for his younger brothers. He helped the ranch hands. He believed in something his father had told him over and over. With skill comes responsibility. You have a gift. Use it to protect people who cannot protect themselves. When the war started, Bobby was 19. In his second year at the University of Wyoming, he could have stayed, could have gotten a deferment. His father was influential. His family needed him on the ranch. But Bobby enlisted the day after Pearl Harbor. His father did not speak to him for 3 weeks. When they finally talked, his father asked him why. Bobby's answer was simple. Because you taught me that men with skill have a duty, and hiding on a ranch while other men fight is not duty, it's cowardice. His father did not argue, but he wrote Bobby a letter before he shipped out. Bobby carried it through the entire war. It said only one thing. Your grandfather killed Germans with a bayonet. I killed them with a rifle. You will kill them from so far away they never see you coming. I do not know if I should be proud or ashamed, but I know I love you. Come home. Bobby never showed anyone that letter. But Jim saw him reading it late at night more than once. William Fischer was born Wilhelm Fischer in Hamburg, Germany in 1920. His father fought for Germany in the First World War, came home broken, watched his country collapse into chaos and hatred, watched the Nazi Party rise, knew what was coming. In 1928, when Will was 8 years old, his father made a decision that saved his life. They left, immigrated to America, settled in Twin Falls, Idaho, changed their name, started over. Will grew up between two worlds. At home, his father spoke German, taught him the old hunting traditions from the Black Forest. Precision, patience, honor. Outside, Will learned to be American, learned English, learned baseball, tried to fit in. It was not easy. When the war started, everything got harder. Suddenly, having a German father was not just difficult. It was dangerous. People looked at him differently, called him names, questioned his loyalty. Will enlisted in January 1942, not because he wanted to fight, because he needed to prove something. He needed to prove he was American. But every time he looked through his rifle scope at a German soldier, he saw his uncle's face. The uncle who had stayed in Germany. The uncle who had taught him to track deer through the forest when he was 6 years old. The uncle who was now most likely fighting for the Wehrmacht. Will carried a burden none of the others understood. Every German he killed could have been family. Samuel Rivers was not supposed to be a soldier at all. Sam was born on the edge of the Comanche Reservation in Amarillo, Texas in 1923. His grandfather was full Comanche. His mother was white. Sam lived in both worlds and belonged fully to neither. His grandfather taught him the old ways. How to move through tall grass without disturbing it. How to read tracks that were 3 days old. How to become so still that your heartbeat slows and you merge with the land itself. The Comanche had been warriors. Then they had been hunted. Then they had been forgotten. But the skills remained. Sam's grandfather told him stories about the old days, about warriors who could crawl within 20 feet of enemy camps without being detected, about hunters who never missed because they only shot when they were certain. A warrior does not waste life, his grandfather said. Every kill must be honored. Every death must be remembered. If you take a life without respect, you poison your own spirit. Sam took those words seriously. He became a hunting guide. Rich men from Dallas and Houston would pay him to help them track deer and wild boar. Sam was the best. He could find animals other guides swore did not exist. When he enlisted in 1943, his grandfather performed a ceremony. Sam knelt before him. His grandfather placed both hands on his head and spoke in Comanche. Then he translated. You will walk between two worlds. You will kill men. But you are not a murderer. You are a warrior. Each man you kill, you must carry. You must remember his face. You must honor his spirit. Only then can you remain whole. Sam promised. He kept that promise. Every single man he killed, he remembered. 73 names, 73 faces. He wrote them down in a journal, not with pride, with responsibility. And when the war ended, he carried them all. But that comes later. First they had to meet. Fort Benning, Georgia, spring 1943. The call went out to every infantry division. The Army needed snipers, not just shooters, hunters. 200 men showed up. Farm boys, city kids, competition shooters, hunters, men who thought they knew how to use a rifle. The selection course destroyed most of them in 3 days. But 4 men stood out immediately: Jim Callahan, Bobby Wade, William Fisher, Samuel Rivers. They did not know each other yet. They came from different worlds, different backgrounds, different reasons for being there. But they shared something the instructors recognized immediately. They had the stillness. The instructors called it fieldcraft, the ability to become invisible, to wait, to endure cold heat, hunger, thirst, pain, boredom, fear, and still take the shot when it mattered. Most men cannot do this. Most men fidget, adjust position, make noise, reveal themselves. These 4 men could lie in one position for 8 hours without moving anything except their eyes. The head instructor was Captain Richard Morrison. He had been a sniper in the First World War, lost hearing in his left ear from artillery, walked with a limp from shrapnel that doctors never fully removed. Morrison did not teach shooting. These men already knew how to shoot. He taught them how to survive what shooting would do to them. On the first day, he stood in front of the remaining candidates and spoke for exactly 3 minutes. Gentlemen, the Army thinks I am here to teach you to be snipers. That is not true. You already are snipers. You learned in the woods, in the fields, in the mountains. I cannot teach you what your fathers and grandfathers already taught you. He paused. Let the words sink in. I am here to teach you one thing and one thing only: how to come home. Not your body. Your body will come home whether you want it to or not. I am here to teach you how to bring your mind home, your soul, because I have seen what happens to men who lose those things, and it is worse than death. He looked at each of them. Some of you will not make it, not because you cannot shoot, because you cannot carry the weight. And that is not weakness. That is humanity. If you realize at any point that you cannot do this, you walk away. No shame, no judgment. Because a sniper who hesitates gets himself killed, and gets his spotter killed, and gets the men he is supposed to protect killed. No one walked away. Morrison put them through 6 weeks of hell. They learned the stalk, how to crawl 1,000 yards through open terrain without being detected, how to build a hide so perfect that a man could stand 3 feet away and never see you. They learned breath control, how to slow your heart rate, how to fire between heartbeats, how to make your body a machine. They learned mathematics, wind speed, bullet drop, temperature effects, the Coriolis effect at extreme range, how to calculate a shot in 3 seconds and execute it in 1. But mostly they learned patience. Morrison's favorite exercise was simple and brutal. He would put a trainee in position overlooking an open field. He would tell them a target would appear sometime in the next 12 hours, maybe sooner, maybe later, maybe not at all. The trainee had to stay in position, could not move, could not adjust, could not break discipline. Some men lasted 3 hours before giving up. Jim Callahan lasted 16 hours, only moved when Morrison physically came and told him the exercise was over. Bobby Wade lasted 14 hours, but he had mapped every inch of terrain and could tell you exactly where he would shoot from 8 different positions. William Fisher lasted 18 hours, built a hide so good Morrison could not find him and had to call out to make him reveal himself. Samuel Rivers lasted 20 hours. Morrison finally had to pour water on him to see if he was still alive. Sam had entered such a deep meditative state that his breathing was nearly invisible. Morrison looked at the 4 of them and made a decision. He paired them off, Jim and Bobby, Will and Sam, 2 teams, different strengths, complementary skills. Jim was the natural, pure instinct, could shoot moving targets without thinking. Bobby was the tactician, saw the battlefield like a chessboard, anticipated enemy movement. Will was the perfectionist, obsessed over every detail. Never took a shot unless he was 100% certain. Sam was the ghost, could disappear in terrain that offered no concealment, had patience that bordered on supernatural. Together, they became something more than the sum of their parts. They trained together for 8 weeks, learned each other's breathing patterns, hand signals, how to communicate without speaking, how to trust the man next to you with your life. And they became friends. Not the easy friendship of peacetime, the deep unspoken bond of men who know they might die together. They did not talk about it. They did not have to. But on the last night before deployment, they sat around a fire outside the barracks, and Bobby said something that became their code. Whatever happens over there, we bring each other home. Not just bodies, minds, souls. We do not let each other become ghosts. They shook hands. They meant it. They did not know how hard that promise would be to keep. Sicily, July 1943. The landing was chaos. The island was supposed to be lightly defended. It was not. The Germans had reinforced. The Italians fought harder than intelligence predicted. The heat was murderous. The terrain was worse. But for snipers, it was perfect. Rolling hills, stone walls, olive groves, 1,000 places to hide and 1,000 angles to shoot from. Jim and Bobby were assigned to the 1st Infantry Division. Will and Sam to the 45th. Different sectors, different battles. But the same war. Jim's first kill happened on his 3rd day in Sicily. They were supporting an advance through an olive grove, German position on a hill 800 yards away. Bobby was spotting. Through the scope, Jim saw a German Feldwebel directing mortar fire. He was killing Americans. Had to be stopped. Bobby called wind, called distance, called the shot. Jim's finger tightened on the trigger. 1 breath, 2 breaths. Between the 3rd and 4th he fired. The Feldwebel dropped. Jim expected to feel something. Pride, satisfaction, even shame. He felt nothing. Just the recoil of the rifle and Bobby's hand on his shoulder. Clean hit. Let's move. They crawled backward out of position, relocated 300 yards, set up again. Jim killed 2 more men that day. A machine gunner, a radio operator. That night he vomited behind a stone wall where no one could see him. Bobby found him anyway. First one's always hard, Bobby said. Gets easier. Jim looked at him. That's what I'm afraid of. It did get easier. By the end of the 1st week, Jim had 7 confirmed kills. Bobby had 9. By the end of the 2nd week, Jim stopped counting. Not because he forgot, because remembering was becoming too heavy. Will and Sam were having their own war in the southern sector. Will's first kill was a German officer. Clean shot at 700 yards. Perfect execution. But when they searched the body later, Will found a letter in the man's pocket. To his son, about coming home after the war, about teaching him to hunt in the forests of Bavaria. Will kept that letter. He kept every letter he found, carried them in his pack. Bobby asked him once why he did that. Because they were men, Will said. They had families. They had lives. If I pretend they were just targets, I become a monster. Sam understood. Sam performed a ritual after every kill, a prayer his grandfather taught him. Silent, internal, asking forgiveness from the spirit of the man he had taken. The other soldiers thought he was crazy, but Sam did not care. He knew something they did not. Every death cost the killer something. You can ignore that cost. You can pretend it does not exist, but it accumulates. It builds. And one day, if you are not careful, it will destroy you. Sam was trying to pay his debts as he went. The others were building accounts they would not settle until much, much later. Italy, winter 1943 to 1944. The campaign became brutal. Mountains, rain, mud, cold that soaked into your bones and never left. The Germans dug in. Every town was a fortress. Every hill was paid for in blood. But the snipers thrived. Jim and Bobby pioneered urban sniper tactics, moving building to building ahead of the main force, clearing enemy positions before the infantry even arrived. They became legends in their division. The guardian angels, the men who kept you alive by killing threats you never saw. German soldiers began refusing to enter certain streets. Intelligence reports mentioned the American ghosts who appeared from nowhere and vanished like smoke. Will and Sam operated in the mountains, hunting German artillery spotters and forward observers. The men who directed the fire that killed hundreds of Americans. They would crawl for hours through freezing rain, set up in positions so exposed that a single mistake meant death, and wait, sometimes for days, and then take one shot, kill one man, and crawl back out. But the costs were mounting. Jim started having nightmares, not about killing, about the faces. Every man he killed, he remembered. Their faces in the scope, the way they fell, the looks of surprise. 67 faces by February 1944. Bobby noticed Jim drinking more, sleeping less, growing quieter. "You need to talk to someone," Bobby said. "And say what?" Jim replied. "That I am good at killing people, and it is destroying me. They will put me in a hospital and send me home. And then would I sit in Montana knowing that men are dying over here because I was not strong enough to do my job?" Bobby had no answer for that. Will was fighting a different battle. Every German he killed felt like killing family. His father's face, his uncle's face, the faces of men he had known as a boy in Hamburg before they left. He started writing letters to his father. Letters he never sent, trying to explain, trying to justify, trying to make sense of being a German who kills Germans to prove he is American. There was no sense to make. Sam was the only one who seemed stable. But that was because Sam had learned to carry the weight differently. After every mission, he would find a quiet place, perform his ritual, speak the names of the men he had killed that day, honor them, release them. The others thought it was strange, but it kept Sam whole when the others were breaking apart. And then everything changed. February 1944, an intelligence briefing. Morrison, now a major, stood in front of them with photographs pinned to a board. "Gentlemen, I have news. The Germans know about you, and they have responded." He pinned up a photo, a man in Wehrmacht uniform, strong jaw, cold eyes, sniper rifle with scope. "This is Oberleutnant Hans Krieger, age 32, Olympic Rifle Team, Berlin 1936, 87 confirmed kills on the Eastern Front. He is the best the Germans have, and they have sent him here to hunt you." Silence. Morrison continued. "He has already killed 2 of our snipers, Patterson and Hughes, 3rd Division, both shot from over 1,000 yards, both clean headshots, both never saw him coming." He paused. "Krieger leaves a calling card, an ace of spades, pinned to a tree or a wall near his kill. He wants you to know it was him." Bobby spoke up. "What do you want us to do, sir?" Morrison looked at them. "I want you to kill him, but more than that, I want you to survive him. This man is not like the others. He is a hunter. Like you, he thinks like you. He has your skills, your patience, your discipline." Morrison pulled out another photo, a playing card, ace of spades, with a bullet hole through the center. "He also has something you do not have, nothing left to lose. His family is dead. British bombing. He is fighting now not for Germany, not for Hitler, just to stay alive one more day. That makes him the most dangerous kind of enemy." Jim studied the photo. "How do we find him?" Morrison smiled. It was not a happy smile. "You do not find him. He finds you. And then you survive long enough to kill him first." 3 days later, Will found the first calling card, pinned to a tree 50 yards from their position. They had been there for 6 hours, had not moved, had not made a sound. And Krieger had walked up, pinned a card to a tree within rifle range, and walked away. The card had writing on it, in English. "American hunters, let us see who is better. K." Will showed it to Sam. Sam looked at it for a long time. Then he said something that chilled Will to his bones. "He is like us. He does not want to kill us. He has to, just like we have to kill him. This is not murder. This is 2 predators meeting in the wild. One will die, but it is not personal." Will did not know if that made it better or worse. They had 10 days to prepare before Krieger made his next move. 10 days to train, to plan, to accept that one of them might not survive. On the 9th night, Bobby gathered all 4 of them. They sat in a ruined church. Outside, artillery rumbled like distant thunder. Bobby spoke quietly. "I made you a promise back in Georgia. We bring each other home. All of us. Minds, bodies, souls. I meant it." He looked at each of them. "But I need you to know something. If it comes down to it and if one of us has to die so the others can live, I volunteer. I am the team leader. That is my job." Jim started to protest. Bobby held up his hand. I am not being noble. I am being practical. Jim, you are the best shooter. Will, you are the best stalker. Sam, you are the best at fieldcraft. I am good at all three, but I am not the best at any. If we lose me, you still have a functional team. If we lose any of you, the team breaks. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, Sam said something in Comanche, then translated. My grandfather says a warrior must be ready to die every day, but he must also be ready to live. The hard part is knowing which one you must do. They sat in silence after that. Outside, the war continued. Inside, four men tried to prepare for a battle that would test not their shooting, but their humanity. They did not sleep that night. They sat together, cleaned their rifles, wrote letters home, made peace with whatever was coming. At dawn, they moved out. Their mission was simple: hunt Krieger before he hunted them. They split into two teams, Jim and Bobby north, Will and Sam south. Whoever found him first would signal the others. They moved into the mountains. The hunt had begun, and somewhere out there in those same mountains, Hans Krieger was waiting. A hunter who had killed 87 men, who had nothing left to lose, who was good enough to walk within 50 yards of the best American snipers without being detected. This was not going to end well. Someone was going to die. They all knew it. The only question was who, and whether the survivors would be able to live with what they had to do to stay alive. Because Morrison had been right about one thing. You could come home with your body intact, but bringing your soul home was a different matter entirely. And in the mountains of Italy, in the winter of 1944, 4 American hunters and 1 German hunter were about to discover just how much a soul could cost. The snow began to fall again. Somewhere in those mountains, someone was looking through a scope. Someone was controlling their breathing. Someone was calculating wind and distance. Someone was about to pull a trigger. And someone else was about to die without ever knowing they had been hunted. This is where the story gets dark. This is where the ghosts are born. The first day they saw nothing. Jim and Bobby moved through the mountains like shadows. They knew Krieger was out there. They could feel him. That strange awareness that comes when another predator enters your territory. Will and Sam moved through the southern valleys, checking every hide, every vantage point, every place a sniper would choose. Nothing. The second day, Bobby found something. Footprints in the mud. Recent, maybe 3 hours old. Boot pattern matched German issue. Size matched Krieger's file. The stride length indicated someone moving with purpose but not rushing. Confident. The prints led to a rocky outcrop with perfect sight lines over the valley below. An ideal sniper position. Bobby signaled Jim. They approached carefully, every sense alert, every nerve ready. The position was empty, but on a flat rock arranged carefully were 3 items: a spent rifle casing, German issue, a cigarette butt, still warm, and an ace of spades. Bobby picked up the card, turned it over. Written on the back in precise handwriting, "You are learning but not fast enough." Jim felt his blood run cold. Krieger had been here, watching them, had let them find his position, was teaching them, playing with them. Bobby radioed Will and Sam, reported the find. Will's voice came back tense. "We found something too." They had found a dead German soldier, shot through the head from long range. Krieger's calling card pinned to his uniform. But this was different. This soldier had been facing away from the shot, had been retreating. Krieger had killed one of his own men. The message was clear. Krieger was not bound by loyalty, not bound by rules. He would kill anyone who got between him and his targets. That night, the 4 Americans made camp in a stone farmhouse. Set watches, slept in shifts. Jim took the midnight watch, sat at a window overlooking the approach roads. Rifle across his lap. At 2 in the morning, he heard it. A sound so faint, most men would have missed it. The scrape of a boot on stone, 200 yards away, maybe less. Jim did not move, did not call out, just watched, waited. A figure emerged from the darkness, tall, moving with the easy confidence of someone who owns the night. Jim brought his rifle up slowly, found the figure in his scope. For 3 seconds he had a shot, but something stopped him. Some instinct, some voice in his head screaming that this was too easy. The figure stopped, turned, looked directly at Jim's window, raised one hand, waved, then vanished back into the darkness. Jim's hands were shaking, his heart hammering. Krieger had walked up to their position, had known Jim was watching, had given him a shot, and had walked away, daring him to take it. Bobby came up behind Jim. "Did you see him?" "Yes." "Why didn't you shoot?" Jim was quiet for a long moment. "Because he wanted me to. And if he wanted me to, it was a trap." Bobby looked out into the darkness. "He is playing with us." "No," Jim said. "He is testing us. He wants to know if we are good enough to be worth killing." The next morning, they found another calling card. This one was different. It was not an ace of spades. It was a king of hearts. And it was pinned to the tree where Bobby had been standing watch 4 hours earlier. Krieger had been close enough to touch them while they slept. Will read the card. His face went pale. On the back, written in German, Wilhelm Fischer, born Hamburg, 1920, Uncle Karl Fischer, Oberst, 253rd Infantry Division. Still alive. Still fighting. You and I are not so different. Sam put his hand on Will's shoulder. He is trying to break you. Do not let him. But the damage was done. Krieger had done his research. Knew Will's history, knew his pain, was using it as a weapon. That was when they realized something terrifying. Krieger had access to American intelligence files, had been reading their mail, their records, their backgrounds. He knew everything about them, and they knew almost nothing about him. Bobby made a decision. We changed tactics. We stopped hunting him. We let him come to us. That is suicide, Will said. No, that is the only way we survive. He is better at hunting than we are, but we are better at patience, so we wait. We set a trap, and we kill him when he walks into it. They spent 2 days preparing, found a valley with limited approaches, set up overlapping fields of fire, created false positions to draw attention while they hid in positions no one would expect. And they waited. 3 days passed. Nothing. On the 4th day, intelligence reported a German convoy moving through their sector. High-value targets. Officers, supply trucks. Perfect ambush opportunity. Bobby studied the map. It is too perfect. What do you mean, Jim asked. I mean, Krieger knows we monitor radio traffic. What if this is bait? What if the convoy is real, but he knows we will be watching it? Will looked at the map, traced possible sniper positions. If I wanted to ambush someone watching that convoy, I would set up here, and here, and here. Bobby nodded slowly. We could ignore it, play it safe. Or, Jim asked, or we take the shot, but we do it my way. Bobby's plan was simple but risky. Jim would take the shot on the convoy. Bobby would spot, but Will and Sam would be hidden 300 yards behind them watching for Krieger. If Krieger took the bait and tried to kill Jim, and Bobby, Will, and Sam would kill him first. It was a trap within a trap. They moved into position at dawn. Jim and Bobby in a ruined barn overlooking the road. Will and Sam in dense brush behind them. The convoy appeared at noon. 3 trucks, 2 motorcycles, officers in the lead vehicle. Through his scope, Jim found his target, a German Hauptmann standing in the back of the first truck, scanning the hills with binoculars. Something about him seemed wrong, too alert. Too ready. Bobby whispered the calculations. Wind, distance, drop. Jim's finger touched the trigger, and then he saw it. The Hauptmann moved in a way that was too precise, too trained. The way he scanned was not random. It was systematic, professional. That is him, Jim breathed. That is Krieger. Bobby looked through his spotting scope. You sure? A positive. He is wearing a Hauptmann's uniform, but that is not how officers move. That is how hunters move. Bobby keyed his radio, whispered to Will and Sam. Target confirmed. Krieger is in the convoy. Jim will take the shot. Be ready for counterfire. Jim centered his crosshairs, controlled his breathing, felt his heartbeat slow. Between one beat and the next, he fired. The bullet flew true. 820 yards. Perfect calculation. It hit Krieger, center mass. Krieger dropped. For 3 seconds, there was triumph. Then Krieger stood up. Body armor. He had been wearing body armor under the uniform. And then the world exploded. Machine gun fire erupted from 3 hidden positions. The convoy had been a trap. German infantry had been waiting in the tree line. Jim and Bobby were pinned. Bullets tore through the barn walls. Wood splinters filled the air. Bobby screamed into the radio, "Ambush! Fall back," but there was nowhere to fall back to. The Germans had them bracketed. A grenade hit the barn. Bobby was thrown against a wall. Blood ran down his leg. Shrapnel. Jim grabbed him, started to drag him toward the back door. Machine gun fire followed them. Too close, too accurate. They were going to die here. And then from 300 yards away, Will and Sam opened fire. Sam's first shot killed the nearest machine gunner. Clean headshot. Will's shot took out a German sergeant directing the assault. The German fire shifted, confused, trying to locate the new threat. Jim and Bobby used the distraction, crawled out of the barn into a ditch. Bobby was losing blood fast. Will and Sam provided covering fire. Methodical, precise, each shot buying seconds. It took 35 minutes to extract. 35 minutes of crawling through mud and blood while Germans searched for them, and Bobby's leg was bad. The shrapnel had hit an artery. He was going into shock. They made it back to Allied lines. Medics took Bobby immediately. Jim, Will, and Sam stood in the rain covered in mud and blood and watched the ambulance drive away. That was the last time Bobby went on a mission with them. The doctors saved his leg, but the wound was too severe. His sniper career was over. They were sending him home. Jim visited him at the field hospital the night before Bobby shipped out. Bobby was pale, weak, but his eyes were clear. "You finish this," Bobby said. "You kill that son of a bitch. I do not want to do this without you. You have Will, you have Sam. You will be fine." Jim shook his head. "We were supposed to bring each other home, all of us." Bobby grabbed his hand, squeezed hard. "You are bringing me home. I am alive because you and Will and Sam came back for me. The promise is kept." He paused. His voice got quieter. "But Jim, listen to me. Do not become what you are hunting. Krieger, he is good. Maybe better than us, but he is empty inside. He has nothing left except killing. Do not let that happen to you." Jim did not answer. Could not answer. Because he was afraid it already had. After Bobby left, the dynamic changed. Jim became the team leader. He was not comfortable with it. Leadership was Bobby's gift. But Will and Sam looked to him now. They redeployed to France, June 1944, the Normandy invasion, the bocage, hedgerow country, hell on earth for conventional forces, paradise for snipers, miles of ancient hedgerows, stone walls, sunken roads, every field a fortress, every lane a kill zone. The Germans had been preparing for months. They knew the terrain. They had the advantage. But American snipers began to change that. Jim, Will, and Sam embedded with the 29th Infantry Division. Their job was simple: clear hedgerows ahead of the advance, kill German officers, eliminate machine gun nests, make the advance possible. They were good at it. Too good. The infantry called them the guardian angels, the men who killed threats before you even knew they existed. But there was a key. Jim's kill count climbed. 67, 70, 75, 80. He stopped sleeping well, started drinking when he could get it, grew quieter, more distant. Will noticed, said nothing, but worried. Sam noticed too, and unlike Will, he spoke up. They were cleaning weapons one night, just the three of them in a ruined barn. Sam looked at Jim for a long time. "You are losing yourself." Jim did not look up from his rifle. "I am doing my job." "Your job is killing Germans. But that is not all you are. If you forget the rest, you become the thing we are fighting." Jim stopped cleaning. His hands were shaking. "I remember every face, Sam. Every single one. 82 men. I see them when I close my eyes. I see them when I aim. I see them when I eat, when I drink, when I breathe. So do not tell me I am forgetting who I am. I remember. I remember too much." Sam was quiet for a moment. Then he did something unexpected. He began to sing, low, in Comanche, the death prayer his grandfather had taught him. When he finished, he looked at Jim. "My grandfather taught me that song. It is for warriors who have killed. It asks forgiveness. It honors the dead. It releases the burden. You want to know why I am still here, still whole, because I give the weight away every day, every kill. I perform the ritual. I do not carry it alone." Jim shook his head. "I am not Comanche. That is not my way. Then find your way. Because if you do not, you will not survive this war. Your body will come home, but you will be gone. 3 days later, Jim faced a choice that would define the rest of his life. They were advancing through a hedgerow. German resistance was collapsing. Surrender was common. Through his scope, Jim saw a German soldier, young, maybe 18, hands raised, surrendering to an American GI. The GI raised his rifle to shoot. Jim was 400 yards away, clear shot on the GI. He could let it happen. It was not his business. The German was the enemy, or Jim made his decision in a heartbeat. He fired. The bullet hit the dirt 3 inches from the GI's foot. The GI jumped, spun around, confused. Jim fired again. Hit the rifle, knocked it from the GI's hands. The GI dove for cover. The German soldier ran, escaped into the hedgerows. That night, the GI found Jim. "Was that you? Did you shoot at me?" Jim looked at him. The GI was young, angry, scared. "Yes." "Why that Kraut killed my brother at Omaha?" "Maybe he did, but he was surrendering. We do not shoot men who surrender." That is the line. That is the difference between us and them. "Screw you, whose side are you on?" Jim stepped closer. His voice was quiet but hard as iron. "I am on the side of going home and being able to look at myself in a mirror. You want revenge, I understand that. But you start killing prisoners, you become the thing you hate, and you will carry that for the rest of your life. Trust me, I carry enough already." The GI backed down, walked away. Will had been watching from across the camp. "That took guts. The men will not like it." Jim shrugged. "I do not care if they like it. Bobby told me not to become what I am hunting. If I let that happen, I am no better than Krieger." But Will had news that changed everything. The German soldier they had captured 2 days earlier, the one they had interrogated. He had been carrying letters. One of those letters was from Hans Krieger. Will read it to Jim and Sam that night. It was written to a friend, another German soldier, speaking candidly in a way military letters never did. Krieger talked about the war, about being tired, about watching his unit die piece by piece, about orders that made no sense. And then there was this, "I have been ordered to execute captured American pilots. They say it is justice for the bombing of our cities, but I cannot do it. They are soldiers. They were following orders, just as I am. If I kill prisoners, I am a murderer, not a soldier. I have refused. The Gestapo has opened an investigation. I may not survive this war, but at least I will not survive it as a monster." There was more. "The American snipers I hunt, they are good, better than I expected. They could have killed me at Ortona. They had the shot, but they hesitated, gave me a chance to retreat. I do not know why. Maybe they understand. We are all hunters forced to hunt each other. We are not enemies by nature, only by circumstance." Sam looked up from the letter. "He is like us." Will nodded slowly. "He is exactly like us, a good man forced to do terrible things, trying to hold on to some piece of his humanity." Jim felt something shift inside him. Something he had been holding tight suddenly loosened. Then maybe the goal is not to kill him. Maybe the goal is to end this war so he can go home too. But they all knew the truth. Eventually they would meet Krieger again, and when they did, one of them would die. That was the nature of war. You could respect your enemy, even understand him, but you still had to kill him. September 1944, the Netherlands. Operation Market Garden had failed. The Allies were bogged down in flooded countryside. Mud, cold, misery. But for snipers, the mission continued. The flat landscape offered almost no cover. Every position was exposed, vulnerable. This was where Sam's skills became legendary. In the flooded polders, Sam could sit in waist-deep water for 18 hours without moving. His patience was supernatural. His ability to blend into the environment was beyond anything the Germans had seen. They started calling him the Phantom of the Dikes. German soldiers refused to patrol certain areas. Entire units would detour miles to avoid sectors where Sam had been active. Will was equally dominant, but in a different way. With no natural cover, everything depended on the ghillie suit. Will became obsessed. He would spend 6 hours preparing for a single mission, gathering local reeds, mud, vegetation, creating suits so perfect that you could stand 5 feet away and never see him. On one mission, Will lay in an open field for 14 hours. German patrols passed within 20 yards of him 3 times. Never saw him. He killed 4 officers that day without ever being detected. But Jim was struggling. The kill count had climbed to 93. Each one weighed on him like stones in a pack. He was drinking more, sleeping less, growing more distant. Will tried to talk to him. Jim shut him out. Sam tried his rituals. Jim was not interested. The weight was becoming unbearable. And then in early October, everything changed. Intelligence reported something strange. A German officer moving toward Allied lines, alone, unarmed, carrying a white flag. High probability it was a trap. Or Jim, Will, and Sam were ordered to intercept, capture, or kill. They tracked him for 3 days, through flooded fields, along muddy dikes, through abandoned farmhouses. The German was good, moved carefully, avoided obvious ambush points, stayed in cover. But nobody was better at this than they were. They cornered him in an abandoned stone barn, surrounded the building, cut off every exit. Jim called out in German. Will had taught him the phrases, "You are surrounded. Come out with your hands up." Long silence. Then the door opened slowly. Hands emerged first, empty. Then a man stepped out into the gray light. He was tall, maybe 6 feet, strong but thin from months of poor rations. His uniform was dirty, worn. He was unarmed, and he was carrying a white flag made from a torn bedsheet. The man looked at them. His eyes moved from Jim to Will to Sam, assessing, recognizing. He spoke in perfect English with only a slight accent. "You are James Callahan, Montana, Will Fisher, Idaho, Samuel Rivers, Texas. I have been tracking you for 18 months. Jim kept his rifle aimed at the man's chest. "Who are you?" The man smiled. It was a tired smile. "You know who I am. My name is Hans Krieger, and I am surrendering." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Hans continued. "I know this seems like a trap. I assure you it is not. I am alone. I have no weapons. I have no backup. I am deserting. And I am trusting you to take me prisoner rather than execute me." Will stepped forward. Why surrender to us?" Hans looked at him directly. "Because you gave me chances. In Italy. You could have killed me. You had clear shots. But you waited, gave me opportunities to retreat. I do not know if it was mercy or tactical caution, but it told me something. You are not monsters. You are soldiers. And I would rather surrender to soldiers than be captured by the SS and executed for desertion." He paused. His voice got quieter. "Also, my daughter is dead. Emma, she was 6 years old. British bombing of Munich. My wife is in a camp. She helped Jews escape. I have nothing left to fight for. I am tired of killing. I am tired of war. I want it to be over." Sam lowered his rifle first. "He is telling the truth." Jim kept his aim steady. "How do you know?" "Because I can hear it in his voice. And because if he wanted to kill us, he has had many chances. He walked up to our camp in Italy. He could have shot us all while we slept." Hans nodded. "Your friend is wise. I am not here to fight. I am here to stop fighting." Hans reached into his pocket slowly, drew out a folded paper. "I wrote you a letter. I hoped I would have the courage to deliver it personally." Will took it, unfolded it, read aloud. "To the American hunters, you have chased me for 18 months. Many times you could have killed me. You gave me chances. I do not know why. Perhaps you understood what I understand now. We are not enemies by choice. We are enemies by circumstance. We are men who were trained to kill, and we are very good at it. But being good at killing does not mean we must enjoy it or want it. I am surrendering to you because I believe you will treat me as a warrior, not as a criminal. Please tell my story. Tell them that soldiers can choose to stop being weapons, that we can choose humanity, even in war." The letter ended with a simple line. "I am ready to go home now, or I am ready to die. Either way, I am finished killing." Jim lowered his rifle, walked forward, extended his hand. "You are a prisoner of war. You will be treated according to the Geneva Convention. You will not be harmed." Hans shook his hand. His grip was firm, the grip of equals. "Thank you." Sam stepped forward, placed his hand on Hans' shoulder. spoke in Comanche, then translated. You fought with honor. Your war is over. May your spirit find peace. Hans looked at him. His eyes were wet. I hope so. I have killed many men. I carry them all. Sam nodded. So do we. We will carry them together now. They walked Hans back to Allied lines, turned him over to intelligence officers. Hans was sent to a POW camp in Belgium. His war was truly over. But for Jim, Will, and Sam, the war continued. And that night, sitting around a fire in a ruined farmhouse, they had a conversation that would stay with them forever. Will spoke first. He was just like us. Jim nodded, exactly like us. A hunter, a good man, forced to kill, trying to hold on to his humanity. Sam added wood to the fire. My grandfather says there is no glory in war, only survival. And the true test of a warrior is not how well he kills. It is whether he can stop killing when the war ends. Whether he can put down the weapon and become human again. They sat in silence for a while. Then Jim said something that surprised them both. I do not want to kill anymore, but I will, because men are depending on us. Because if we stop, more will die. But when this is over, I am done. I am going home, and I am never touching a rifle again. Will looked at him. Can you do that? Can you just stop? Jim stared into the fire. I do not know, but I have to try. Because if I cannot, then what was it all for? They received orders 3 days later, the Battle of the Bulge, German counteroffensive, desperate, brutal. All available snipers needed immediately. They packed their gear, loaded into a jeep, headed toward Bastogne. Sam was quiet during the drive, more quiet than usual. Will noticed. What is wrong? Sam did not answer for a long time. Then he spoke. I had a dream last night, a vision. My grandfather came to me. He said one of us does not come home from the next battle. Jim kept his eyes on the road. Which one? He did not say, but he told me to be ready, to accept, to honor the sacrifice. Will tried to make light of it. Dreams are just dreams, Sam. Sam shook his head. Not for my people. Dreams are messages, and this message was clear. Nobody spoke after that. They drove through the cold November landscape toward the sound of distant artillery. Somewhere ahead in the frozen forests of Belgium, the bloodiest battle of the war was waiting, and one of them was going to die there. They all felt it now. Not just Sam, all of them, the weight of 93 kills. The faces in the scope, the dreams that would not stop, the piece of themselves they had left behind in every town, every field, every mountain. Jim thought about Bobby's words. Do not become what you are hunting. But what if it was too late? What if they were already ghosts? The jeep climbed into the hills. The temperature dropped. Snow began to fall. Behind them, the Netherlands disappeared into mist. Ahead, Belgium waited in the cold. Jim's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Will checked his rifle for the 100th time. Sam closed his eyes, whispered a prayer only he could hear. They were the best snipers the American army had. They had survived Sicily, Italy, Normandy, Holland. They had hunted and been hunted, killed and been spared, respected their enemy and destroyed him. They had done everything right. But sometimes in war, doing everything right is not enough. Sometimes the price comes due regardless. The snow fell harder. The road grew steep. The sound of artillery grew louder. They were driving into the storm, into the cold, into the last battle that would test not their skill, but their humanity. And somewhere in those frozen forests, death was waiting patiently. Death always waits patiently for hunters, because eventually every hunter becomes the hunted. Every predator becomes prey. And every ghost must face the moment when silence is no longer enough to keep them safe. The Battle of the Bulge was coming, and it would take everything they had left to survive it. December 19, the Ardennes Forest, Belgium. The coldest winter in 50 years. The snow came down in sheets, not the gentle snow of Christmas cards. The killing snow. The snow that froze your fingers before you could feel it happening. The snow that turned breath into ice crystals in your lungs. Jim, Will, and Sam arrived at Bastogne 3 days before the siege began. The 101st Airborne was already digging in. Everyone knew something was coming. The Germans had gone quiet, too quiet, like animals before an earthquake. The snipers were assigned to the northern perimeter. Their mission was clear. German artillery spotters were directing fire that was killing hundreds of Americans. Find them, kill them, save lives. Simple in theory, impossible in practice. The Germans had learned. They kept their observers mobile, hidden, protected, and the weather made long-range shooting nearly impossible. But Jim, Will, and Sam were not ordinary snipers anymore. They had become something else, something harder, something that did not feel cold or fear or hesitation. They had become the weapons Bobby had warned them not to become. They set up in a ruined church overlooking the valley. Perfect sight lines, multiple escape routes, good cover. And they waited. The German offensive began on December 16th at 5:30 in the morning. Artillery barrage that shook the earth. Then tanks, then infantry. Wave after wave, the 101st held. Barely, but the artillery was devastating. Medical tents, supply depots, command posts. The Germans knew exactly where to shoot, which meant they had spotters. Close, watching. Jim glassed the tree line with his scope, looking for anything. Movement, unnatural shapes, light reflecting off glass. Nothing. Will did the same from a different angle. Sam closed his eyes, listened, felt, used senses most men had forgotten. After 2 hours, Sam pointed. There, 1,100 yards, edge of the pine grove. He is in the trees. Jim swung his scope, searched. At first he saw nothing. Then he saw it. Not the spotter, the absence of snow, one branch where snow should have accumulated but had not, because someone had brushed it away to create a shooting lane. I see him, Will calculated. Wind was gusting, 20 to 30 miles per hour. Temperature was dropping, 17 degrees Fahrenheit. The bullet would behave differently in this cold. 1,140 yards. Wind right to left variable. Temperature effects significant. This is maybe a 60% shot. Jim settled into position, controlled his breathing. His trigger finger was still healing from the frostbite in Italy. It hurt, but he could still shoot. He waited, watching the branch, waiting for the spotter to move, to give him a clearer shot. Minutes passed, 10, 20, 30. Then the German made a mistake, shifted position. For 3 seconds, his head was visible through the scope. Jim fired. The bullet took 4 seconds to arrive. 1,140 yards through gusting wind and falling snow. Through the scope, Jim saw the German spotter fall from the tree. The artillery fire shifted, became less accurate. The spotter was dead or wounded. Either way, Americans would live because of that shot. But there was no triumph, just the mechanical process of cycling another round, scanning for the next target, continuing the work. They stayed in that position for 3 days. Jim killed 4 more spotters. Will killed 3. Sam killed 5. Each one meant fewer American casualties. Each one was necessary. But the cost was mounting in ways that had nothing to do with bullets. Jim was not sleeping. When he closed his eyes, he saw faces, not just the men he had killed, but their families, the wives who would get telegrams, the children who would grow up without fathers. Will was pulling away, speaking less, performing his task with mechanical efficiency, but losing the humanity that had made him different. Sam still performed his rituals, but they were taking longer, the prayers more desperate, the burden growing heavier. On the 4th day, intelligence reported a high-value target, a German colonel directing the artillery barrage. If they could kill him, they could disrupt the entire German fire plan. The problem was location. He was operating from a farmhouse 1,400 yards away, extreme range, difficult conditions, and heavily guarded. But the payoff was worth it. One shot could save hundreds of lives. Jim studied the map. We cannot get closer. The ground between here and there is open. We would be spotted before we got within 1,000 yards. Will nodded. So we take the shot from here, 1,400 yards, coldest day of the year. Wind is chaos, but it is possible. Sam was quiet, then he spoke. I will go. They both looked at him. What do you mean? Jim asked. I will infiltrate. Get close, make the shot from 500 yards instead of 1,400. Higher probability of success. That is suicide, Will said. You cannot get that close without being detected. Sam smiled. It was a sad smile. I can. You know I can. I have done it before. Jim shook his head. No, we find another way. There is no other way. You know it. I know it. That colonel is killing our men. Someone has to stop him. And I am the only one who can get close enough to guarantee the shot. They argued for an hour, but Sam was right. He was the only one who could do it. Finally, Jim agreed, but with conditions. You go in, you take the shot, and you get out. No heroics, no risks. You do the job, and you come home. Sam nodded. I will come home. But when he said it, he did not meet Jim's eyes. Sam left at dusk, carried only his rifle ammunition and a knife. No pack, no extra gear, traveling light and fast. Jim and Will watched him disappear into the snow. Will spoke quietly. He is not coming back. Do not say that. I can feel it, Jim. The same way he felt it. One of us does not come home. It is him. He knows it. That is why he volunteered. Jim wanted to argue, but he felt it too. Sam moved through the night like a ghost. Took him 6 hours to cover the 800 yards to the farmhouse. Crawling, sliding, becoming one with the snow and darkness. He set up in a drainage ditch 200 yards from the target building. Perfect position. Clear line of sight to the window where the colonel was working. Through his scope, Sam watched the German officers move around inside, studying maps, giving orders, coordinating the killing. He found his target, the colonel, gray hair, iron cross at his throat, pointing at maps, directing death. Sam centered his crosshairs, whispered his prayer, asked forgiveness, honored the spirit he was about to take. He fired. The colonel dropped. For 5 seconds, there was confusion in the farmhouse. Officers rushing to the body, shouting, trying to understand what had happened. Sam was already moving, backing out of his position. He had maybe 2 minutes before they organized a search. He made it 50 yards. Then a German patrol stumbled onto him. Pure bad luck. They had been moving through the area, heard the shot, came to investigate. Sam killed the first 2 with his rifle. The third with his knife. But there were more. A full squad. 12 men. Sam fell back to a destroyed barn, took cover, returned fire. He killed 3 more. But he was surrounded, pinned down, no escape route. Back at the church, Jim and Will heard the gunfire. Distant, rapid, desperate. Jim grabbed his rifle. We go get him. We cannot reach him in time. It is 800 yards. By the time we get there, it will be over. Then we die trying. They ran, through snow, through darkness, toward the sound of gunfire. They were too far away to help. They knew it. But they ran anyway, because that was the promise. We bring each other home. The gunfire intensified, then slowed, then individual shots. Sam was running out of ammunition, running out of time. Jim and Will were still 400 yards away when they heard the explosion. Grenade, then silence. They reached the barn 10 minutes later, 6 dead Germans outside, 3 more inside. Sam had made them pay for every inch. They found him in the back corner, still alive. Barely. The grenade had torn his abdomen open. Blood everywhere. Too much blood. Jim dropped to his knees, pressed his hands against the wounds, trying to stop the bleeding, knowing it was futile. Will pulled out morphine, but Sam shook his head. No, I want to feel this. I want to be here. His voice was weak, wet, blood in his lungs. Jim was crying, trying to hold Sam together, trying to keep him alive through sheer force of will. You are not dying. I am not letting you go. We are getting you out of here. Sam smiled, blood on his teeth. Liar. But thank you. He coughed. Blood came up. Jim, Will, listen. Tell my grandmother. Tell him I died a warrior. I honored every kill. I carried the weight. My spirit is clean. Sam, please. Will was crying now too. Tell Bobby. Tell him I kept the promise. I came home. Maybe not my body, but my spirit. It is going home. His breathing was getting shallower. The colonel. Did I get him? Yes, Jim said. You got him. Good. How many did that save? Hundreds? Maybe thousands. Sam nodded slowly. Worth it then. His hand found Jim's. Do not become ghosts. Promise me. When this is over, you go home. You become men again. You do not let the killing define you. I promise. Will, I promise. Sam's grip loosened. I see him, my grandfather. He is here. He says I did well. He says the burden is lifted. His eyes focused on something they could not see. I am not afraid. And then he was gone. Jim held him for a long time, rocking back and forth, sobbing. Will sat with his hand on Sam's chest, both of them unable to let go. Finally, German artillery started falling near their position. They had to move. They carried Sam's body 800 yards through enemy fire back to American lines. They would not leave him, would not let him lie in the mud with the Germans he had killed. He was coming home. It took them 4 hours. When they reached the perimeter, they collapsed, exhausted, broken. The medics took Sam's body. Jim and Will sat in the snow, covered in his blood, unable to speak, unable to process what had just happened. Bobby found them there 2 hours later. Bobby had come back, against doctor's orders, walked away from the hospital, hitchhiked rides back to the front. He could not stay away while his men were fighting. When he saw them, he knew. Sam, Jim nodded. Bobby sat down between them, put his arms around both. The three of them sat there in the snow while the battle raged around them. No words, no comfort, just presence. The only thing they had left to give. The Battle of the Bulge continued for another month. Jim and Will fought through it. Mechanical, efficient, empty. Jim's kill count reached 107. Will's reached 91. Neither of them cared anymore. They were just doing the job, getting through each day, waiting for the war to end so they could stop. When Germany finally surrendered in May 1945, Jim was in a foxhole in Bavaria. Will was in Austria. They heard the news over the radio. The war was over. They had survived. But survival felt less like victory and more like punishment. They were alive. Sam was not. That arithmetic did not balance. Jim came home to Montana in August 1945. His mother cried when she saw him. His siblings threw a party. The town treated him like a hero. He smiled, said the right things, pretended to be the son they remembered. But inside, he was hollow. He tried to go back to his old life, tried to work as a forest ranger. But he could not handle being alone in the woods, could not be in places where he might have to shoot. He sold his hunting rifles, all of them, would not touch a gun. His mother asked him once why he did not hunt anymore. I have killed enough, he said. The nightmares were constant. Every night the faces came, 107 men. He knew their expressions in the moment before death: surprise, fear, acceptance, pain. And Sam, always Sam, bleeding in his arms, asking him to remember. Jim started drinking, not socially, not for pleasure, to stop the dreams, to quiet the faces. His family watched him deteriorate, did not know how to help. In 1946, Bobby came to visit. Bobby was walking with a cane now. The leg wound had never fully healed, but he was alive. He had a wife, a baby on the way. He was building a life. He found Jim drunk at noon in a cabin in the woods. They sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Bobby spoke. Sam made you promise something. Jim looked at him, eyes red, exhausted. I remember. Are you keeping it? I am trying. Trying is not enough. You are dying, Jim. Maybe not your body, but everything else. And Sam died to save Americans, not to watch you destroy yourself. Jim's hands were shaking. I see their faces, Bobby. Every night. 107 faces. How am I supposed to live with that? The same way Sam lived with it. You honor them, you carry them, but you do not let them kill you. Because if you die this way, then what was it all for? Bobby pulled something from his pocket. A journal, worn, stained. Sam's journal. The Army sent me Sam's effects. This was in there. He wrote about every kill, every prayer, every burden. The last entry is addressed to you and Will. He handed it to Jim. Jim opened to the last page. Sam's handwriting. Neat. Precise. If I die, I want Jim and Will to know something. You are not ghosts. You are warriors. You did what had to be done. You saved Leeds. You ended a war. You are not murderers. You are not monsters. You are men who answered a call. Now you must do the harder thing. You must learn to live again. Find peace. Forgive yourselves. I will wait for you in the spirit world. And when you join me, I want to see men who lived well, not ghosts who merely survived. Make my death mean something. Live. Jim read it 3 times. Then he closed the journal, looked at Bobby. How? I do not know, but we figure it out together, because that was the promise. We bring each other home. All of us, and Sam is not home until we honor his sacrifice by living the way he wanted us to live. It took time, years. Jim stopped drinking, started teaching at the local school, told kids about the war, not the glory, the truth, the cash, the weight. He never hunted again. But he taught marksmanship, taught safety, taught respect for weapons and for life. He married in 1949, a school teacher named Helen. She knew about the nightmares, held him when they came, never asked him to be anyone other than who he was. They had 3 children. Jim was a good father, patient, kind, protective. But his children noticed something. He never raised his voice, never showed anger, kept everything controlled, measured. His daughter asked him once why he was so calm. Because I used up all my anger in the war, he said. I have none left, and I am grateful for that. Will had a different journey. He came home to Idaho and could not reconcile who he was. German by blood, American by choice, warrior by necessity. He tried to reconnect with his German heritage, but felt guilty. He tried to forget it, but felt empty. For 2 years he drifted. Then in 1947 he did something that saved him. He opened the Sam Rivers Memorial Hunting School. He taught kids how to hunt. But more than that, he taught them Sam's philosophy. Every kill must be honored. Every death must be respected. Every bullet carries responsibility. He taught them fieldcraft, patience, discipline, but he also taught them when not to shoot, how to let an animal go, how to know the difference between sport and necessity. The school became successful. Kids came from all over Idaho. Some became hunters. Some just learned valuable life lessons about responsibility and respect. Will never married, but he was not alone. He had his students, his mission, his purpose, and he wrote letters to Germany, to Hans Krieger. They had stayed in contact, exchanged letters every few months. 2 former enemies, 2 hunters, 2 men trying to make peace with what they had done. In 1952, Will received a letter that changed everything. Hans wrote about his life after the war. He had been a POW in Texas, treated well, better than he expected. The American guards had been fair, given him work on a ranch, taught him about American life. He had been repatriated in 1946, returned to Germany, found his country in ruins. His wife had died in the camps, his daughter in the bombing. He had nothing left, but he rebuilt, became a teacher, like his spotter Klaus had wanted to be, taught history, taught young Germans about the cost of war, about the importance of peace. And then Hans wrote something that made Will cry. I want to meet you, not as enemies, as survivors. I want to honor Samuel Rivers. I never met him, but I know he was like us, a hunter who became a soldier, a good man forced to do hard things. I would like to visit his grave, if you will permit it. Will showed the letter to Jim. Do you want to go? Jim thought about it for a long time. Yes, I think Sam would want that, and I think we need it to close the circle. Bobby agreed to come too. In 1953, the 3 of them traveled to Germany, to Munich, to meet Hans Krieger. They met in a small cafe. Awkward at first, 3 Americans and 1 German, former enemies, men who had hunted each other. Hans stood when they entered. He was older now, gray at the temples, lines on his face, but his eyes were clear. They shook hands. Hans showed them photographs. His daughter Emma before the bombing, his wife in her wedding dress. His life before the war destroyed it. Will showed photographs too. Sam in his dress uniform, Bobby before his leg wound, Jim with his first deer age 12. They shared their losses, their burdens, their attempts to rebuild, and they realized something profound. They were the same. Different uniforms, different languages, different flags, but the same humanity, the same pain, the same attempt to make sense of senseless violence. The next day they traveled to Belgium together, to the American cemetery, to Sam's grave. Hans carried flowers, German flowers, brought from his garden in Munich. He placed them on Sam's grave, knelt, spoke in German. then translated. I never met you, Samuel Rivers, but I know you were a warrior. You were honorable. You fought to protect your brothers. You died with courage. I honor you. And I promise to live in a way that makes your sacrifice meaningful. No more war, no more killing, only peace, only teaching, only helping the next generation understand what we learned. That warriors are not heroes. They are men who answer a call, and the greatest victory is learning when to stop fighting. Jim knelt beside him, placed his hand on Sam's headstone. Sam, I kept my promise. I am not a ghost. I am a man again. I have a family. I have a life. I carry you. But I do not let you destroy me. I honor you by living well. Will and Bobby joined them. 4 men kneeling in a cemetery, crying. Not from sadness, from release. The weight they had been carrying for 9 years. The faces, the kills, the burden. It did not disappear. It never would. But it became manageable, bearable. Because they were carrying it together now. Not just the Americans, but Hans too. They stayed in Europe for 2 weeks, visited battlefields, told stories, laughed, cried, healed. When they returned to America, something had changed. Jim stopped having nightmares as frequently. The faces still came, but they were quieter now, less accusatory, more understanding. Will made peace with his identity. He was both German and American, and that was okay. He could honor both heritages without guilt. Bobby's legs still hurt, but he stopped seeing it as a wound and started seeing it as a reminder. He had survived. He had a life. He had a purpose. The years passed. Jim became a respected educator, wrote a memoir in the 1990s. Ghosts in the Mud, A Sniper's Burden. It became required reading at military academies. Will's hunting school operated until 2010. Thousands of students passed through. Many became hunters. All became better men. Bobby ran his family ranch, became an advocate for veteran mental health decades before PTSD was officially recognized. Hans stayed in Germany, taught history, corresponded with his former enemies, became a voice for peace and reconciliation. Jim died in 2003, age 78, surrounded by family. His last words to his daughter, I am going to see Sam now, and I can look him in the eye. Bobby died in 1990, age 73, heart attack, quick, painless. Memorial service attended by hundreds of veterans he had helped over the years. Will died in 1997, age 77, buried with Sam's journal at his request. So Sam would know he kept his promise. Hans died in 1908, age 76, buried in Munich next to his wife and daughter. At his request, American and German flags were placed on his grave. 2 countries, 1 humanity. Sam never left Belgium. Still there in the Ardennes American Cemetery, plot 17, row 3. But his legacy lived on. In the school that bore his name, in the journal that guided his friends, in the philosophy he taught them. Every death must be honored. Every burden must be shared. Every warrior must choose to become human again. This is not a story about heroes. This is a story about the cost of answering the call, about the weight of doing what must be done, about the long journey from warrior to man. Jim, Bobby, Will, Sam, and yes, even Hans. They were not special. They were not superhuman. They were hunters from remote corners of their countries. Men with a gift that war transformed into a weapon. They killed. Over 300 men between them. Each one necessary, each one strategic, each one saving American lives. But each one cost them a piece of themselves. The lesson is not that snipers are heroes. The lesson is that war transforms men. And the true test is not how well you fight. It is whether you can stop fighting when the war ends, whether you can put down the weapon, whether you can become human again. Jim, Bobby, Will, and Sam chose humanity. It was not easy. It took years. It required help. It demanded honesty about the cost. But they did it. They did not become ghosts in the mud. They became survivors, teachers, fathers, friends. They carried their burdens, but they did not let those burdens destroy them. And that is the real victory. Not the kills, not the medals, not the missions accomplished. The victory is in coming home. Not just your body, your mind, your soul, your humanity. The victory is in looking at yourself in the mirror and seeing a man, not a weapon, not a ghost, a man. That is what Sam died for. Not to kill Germans, to protect that possibility. The possibility that his brothers could survive and become men again. His death was not meaningless. It was the ultimate act of love, sacrificing himself so they could live, so they could go home, so they could have families and futures in peace. And they honored that sacrifice by living, by healing, by teaching others, by showing that warriors can choose peace. Their legacy is not the 300 Germans they killed. Their legacy is the lesson they taught every warrior must eventually choose. Will I remain a weapon, or will I become a human being again? Jim, Bobby, Will, and Sam chose humanity, and in doing so they won a victory more important than any battle. They won themselves back. May we honor their choice by making the same one. When violence is necessary, may we answer the call. But when the violence ends, may we have the courage to put down the weapon and become human again. That is the lesson of the ghosts in the mud. They were not ghosts, they were men, and they came home.